My name is Magnifico. My badge number is 5815. Don't touch me.
Get the
Me again.
bro, where your butt?
Remember this guy did a video on about a month ago, Officer Magnifico, who assaulted and accosted these kids in a Sheetz gas station.
I want my phone.
Bro, understand this, son.
Yo.
I'm not going to put up with your shit.
Yo.
Understand who you're talking to.
What the
And the town council demoted him pending an investigation. As it turns out, he ended up resigning. Well, not really. That's what I first thought. But he actually resigned from some other place. Not only has he not resigned from the original department that my first video was about, but as it turns out, he's actually pretty much still doing the same thing and still making the same amount of money. And even worse, he is challenging the little bit of discipline he did receive and may get that completely overturned. This guy is also, believe it or not, the head football coach still of the local high school there. As I pointed out in the last video, this guy was a known hothead, and despite the lack of body cams, this wasn't even the first time that he had been caught on some other camera losing his temper on a member of the community over some extremely minor issue.
What's that? What's that? What's that to my face, Terry? I'm standing right here. You think you're such a tough guy?
You're such
Why don't
a
you just
tough
say it to
guy.
my face, huh? Why don't you make a move? Because
Why do
you
I
can't.
got to?
Because you get your
got
ass
to move.
kicked. That's
Yeah.
why. Because you're an idiot.
Now, that was a 2017 incident where this guy came in to complain about a parking ticket that he received and ends up getting confronted and accosted and assaulted in part by Officer Magnifico and other officers.
Get on the ground right now. Don't you f***ing move. You understand me? Don't you f***ing move. Now you're in for it. Okay? You want to f*** around? This is what happens. Okay? You done now? Put your hand out. Put your hand out. Can't breathe, man. I don't care.
Fast forward to June of this year, there's a 39-second viral video that takes off on social media showing Officer Magnifico doing something very similar to these two kids at a Sheetz gas station, where one of them wanted his phone back from a Sheetz employee.
Here.
It's a public place. You're not.
Who's here?
Okay?
Please tell me who's here.
I'm here.
I don't give a bro. I want my phone.
Understand this, son.
Yo.
I'm not going to put up with your shit.
Yo.
Understand who you're talking
What
to.
the? What the? Yo.
Not going to put up with your crap. I told you to quit yelling and screaming. You're not allowed in here. Leave.
What's your name, badge?
My name is Magnifico. My badge number is 5815. Don't touch me.
Get the
Me again.
bro. Where your butt?
In both of these incidents, we see Officer Magnifico quickly turn to violence, not because it's necessary, but because some peasant within his jurisdiction dared to use a profane word in his public presence. In the 2017 incident, just before the guy was violently arrested for complaining over a parking ticket, Magnifico tried to tell him it was illegal to use a profane word in public.
What makes you think you can talk to us like that?
Talk to you like what?
Mother effing him. Why do you think you can do that in a public street? You can't. It's against the law.
So nobody heard me.
You still can't do it. In a public place, you can't do it.
Nobody heard me.
It doesn't make a difference. You're on a public street. The problem is nothing.
It's public, right?
Nothing. Right. It's public, and you can't cuss and swear in public. It's against the law.
Which, at least according to the U.S. Supreme Court, it's not, especially in the context of conversing with law enforcement. One of the biggest U.S. Supreme Court cases in the area of the First Amendment is Cone versus California from 1971, where the court held that wearing a jacket with the phrase "F the draft" in a courthouse was protected speech. The use of profanity to express political opinion does not lose First Amendment protection simply because it's offensive. Verbally criticizing police officers with profane words, such as saying "F the police," is also protected as political expression. Now, obscene speech, according to Miller versus California in 1973, is not protected under the First Amendment, but profanities like the word "f*** in the context of criticizing the police is not obscene. Obscenity requires material that appeals to the, quote, prurient interest, depicting sexual conduct in a patently offensive way, and also lacks serious value. So none of that applies to political criticism or verbal profanity-laden criticism of police officers. For instance, in the 2002 Sixth Circuit case of Green versus Barber, the Sixth Circuit found that calling a police officer an asshole during a traffic stop was protected speech, and an arrest based solely on that insult violated the First Amendment. And arrests based solely on profanity are going to almost always violate the First Amendment. Indeed, having the freedom to verbally oppose or challenge the police without risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. In the 2025 Sheetz incident, apparently no violence at all was needed, nor was any arrest needed at all until the kid said a swear word.
Here.
It's a public place. You're not.
Who's here?
Okay?
Please tell me who's here.
I'm here.
I don't give a
Then, out of nowhere, Magnifico rushed the kid, violently knocked him to the ground, and showed his temper for all the world to see.
Not gonna put up with your crap. I told you to quit yelling and screaming. You're not allowed in here. Leave.
Now, a completely common response for this, for people who are perfectly normal, reasonable people, is along the lines of, well, the kid was running his mouth. He shouldn't have been running his mouth. Be polite and cooperative with the police, and things like this would not happen to you. And that is a perfectly appropriate way to live your life. By all means, keep the man completely out of your life if you can. But using that truth as justification for what Officer Magnifico did here, legally speaking, is the same thing as saying, I hate constitutional rights. Feelings are more important than the Bill of Rights. The law of the land right now in Pennsylvania on when police officers can use force against somebody is case law out of the Third Circuit. There's a case called Anthony versus Seltzer from 2017 that completely puts this scenario to rest, holding that force cannot be used legitimately by a police officer against any individual who is compliant and poses no ongoing threat to himself or others, or who is not resisting arrest even if he was initially non-compliant. Number one, the kid is not under arrest. He has no right to seize the kid, so it would not be reasonable to use any amount, any level of force to take him into custody. And most importantly, that kid did not pose any threat to Magnifico or anyone else at the scene. The justification for police violence is often very, very similar to just the regular self-defense analysis. The most important thing to look at is whether anyone was in danger. If so, it's often going to be reasonable to use some level of force. But if nobody is in danger, it's almost never going to be reasonable to use violence. And certainly not in response to just getting angry because somebody used a profane word in your presence. There literally is no defense to this at all, even if we're trying to be unbiased and look at both sides. This is why it's really shocking to see how this one has played out. Everybody on Team Constitution, so everybody but Magnifico, his buddies, the police union, everybody knows what he did was a constitutional violation and that it was wrong on several levels. The town council knew it. That's why they at least demoted him, reduced his pay allegedly, etc. Recently, I saw in reporting from the Newcastle News, the story for which I will link below, Magnifico resigns as Wayne police chief. And I was thinking, oh, okay, yeah, he resigned. But wait a minute. As Wayne police chief, not as Ellwood City chief. So he's also getting paid as the Wayne police chief. So he resigned from that. So I looked at some of the other updates since my last video, also from the Newcastle News. This is insane. Back from June 28th, Ellwood officer's demotion includes slight pay decrease. Ellwood City police officer Robert Magnifico's demotion after a viral video showed him shoving a man to the ground will result in a $1.69 decrease in pay, but he may end up making more money in his lesser role thanks to seniority. Magnifico, demoted from sergeant to patrolman by Borough Council on June 16th, has filed a grievance against the punishment. He's within his rights to do so, officer in charge Michael McBride told the news, so he filed a grievance, and apparently a state arbitrator will hear his appeal of his discipline, which could mean that he receives his old title back, nullifying his suspension. However, Magnifico's responsibilities and pay haven't changed much at all because of the current police collective bargaining agreement, i.e. unions. The Ellwood City Department does not have a chief, and McBride, like Magnifico, is part of the bargaining unit and allowed overtime. As sergeant, Magnifico served as second in command. McBride said that Magnifico has the most seniority as a patrolman, with more than 25 years. As a result, Magnifico assumes the officer in charge role when he's on shift with an officer other than McBride. The officer in charge receives extra compensation during shifts. So if I understand this correctly, he was demoted. His pay was reduced. But thanks to all the red tape negotiated by the police unions and the politicians, he's technically now making as much money or perhaps even more than he was making before. And he also has the same or more authority because of his seniority for being there 25 years. Thanks again to the police unions and the politicians. And even though he's making maybe more money, he's appealed that because not only does he want more money, he also wants that title back. All of this despite the fact that he was caught on video violently assaulting a kid in violation of the Constitution and probably many state and local laws as well. That is just insane. This highlights an often ignored problem that exists across the country, and it exists in red states and blue states alike. It exists in rural areas and urban areas alike. Of course, many places worse than others. Thanks to the politicians and the police unions, these police officers have so many rights. So a police officer does something bad, yet the employer, the city, on behalf of the people, can't even fire that individual. And this perfectly illustrates that. Did something unlawful, caught on video, called on it, it was publicized, most of the public is outraged, the town council was outraged, yet the defiant police officer is fighting against it, not only still getting paid, but likely getting paid more. But wait, there's more. As many of you reached out to tell me, not only was Officer Magnifico the police chief apparently in 2 different jurisdictions, but he was also, and still is also, the head football coach at Ellwood High School. So he's still employed, as far as I know, by the Riverside Beaver County School District in Ellwood City, Pennsylvania. Given the fact that this guy has been caught on video accosting and assaulting these 2 kids, one of whom was a juvenile, I believe, is it appropriate for him to be a football coach? And I'm sure that there are people out there saying that that's who they want as a football coach. In my opinion, the absolute worst coaches and the worst thing about football that I ever experienced were coaches who were bullies. Perhaps it's only a matter of time until another viral video shows how this head football coach has treated his players. Maybe not, but would you doubt it given what we've seen already of Magnifico?
What's that? What's that to my face, Terry? I'm standing right here. You think you're such a tough guy?
You're such
Why don't
a
you just
tough
say it to
guy.
my face, huh? Why don't you make a move? Because you
I
can't.
got to.
Because you get your
got
ass
to move.
kicked, that's
Yeah.
why. Because you're an idiot. My name is Magnifico. My badge number is 5815. Don't touch me.
Get the
Me again.
bro, where your butt?
I'll put all the contact information for the relevant political authorities if you're interested in making your voice heard here. And please let me know in a comment what you think about this. And if you want to stay updated on this, please subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JohnBryanESQ. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.